here in Troy, that streets are named after here in Troy, and a few names. A few people in here are actually here this evening that kind of appear in the columns and are characters in this book. So if you haven't had an opportunity, please read it. Daryl also serves as an alderman here in Troy, and so if everybody would give a warm welcome to Daryl Hamston, he's going to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Alan. He's also an alderman in Troy. And I don't have written notes, and I'm a better writer than I'm a speaker, but I've read a lot of Paul Simon's work over the last year and a half or so. And I remember one thing he said in the 60s when she was just a young girl. Somebody asked her what her dad did, and he said, he works on Abraham Lincoln. And Paul Simon wrote that actually Abraham Lincoln worked on him, because working on the book he realized what a great man he was. And I feel much the same way. The more I meet people like you that know Paul Simon and work with him, remember him a lot more than I did, and the more I know about his family, his parents, his children, his co-workers, and everybody that knew him, it's really made this a labor of love, because he's truly a man worth remembering, and I think we'd all be better off with a little bit of Paul Simon in everybody. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome, I'm proud to welcome, it's a great honor to welcome back a Troy native, Sheila Simon.
Thank you very much, Daryl, and thank you everyone for being here and supporting the museum. What a great treat. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Quinn, for coming here. And thank you for all the Lincoln comparisons. I just love that. Our family would always love that. I remember in the Iowa campaign, Kathy, I'm sure you were out there just before the Callahans were probably there too, when the Des Moines Register endorsed Dad, and they made a comparison to Lincoln, and my Aunt Sheila said, finally someone recognized that. Ridiculous. I just love the idea of a museum about Dad. But probably everyone thinks that their dad should have a museum. I know my children think that I'm old enough and weird enough that I should probably be in a museum. So why should we do this? What was special about Dad? And I think you're into some of the many things. And our neighbors here, the whole neighborhood of Clay Street and Market Street, and Mrs. Stock, my kindergarten teacher here, I'm just so thrilled to, and I have to say I didn't recognize her at all because she used to be taller than me. Anyway, I think the neighborhood gang and everyone else is into that there was something special about Dad, and in the way he inspired people, in the way he saw the world. And I still run into people all the time who tell me new stories about what they learned from Dad, what they got out of Dad, what he helped them with, how he helped their wife get over here from India or wherever else it was. I enjoy those stories all the time. I think the most consistent thing that people appreciate about Dad was his honesty, and not just not being indicted, thinking of reading the newspaper headlines this morning, but a more important kind of honesty, an honesty of I'm willing to tell you the bad stuff when the bad stuff needs to be told. An honesty of I'm willing to tell you that the things you want from government are going to cost something and that we have to be willing to pay for it. So people appreciate that a great deal. I think people appreciate Dad's view of the world and how he maybe saw things a little bit differently. Everyone starts off with their own perspective. My perspective started off here in Troy and all the big institutions in my life that, like Mrs. Stock, have shrunk a little bit along the way. But Dad was able to reach beyond that perspective that he started off with. He was a very bright man, but one of his most proud accomplishments was PL 94-142, which unless you have a kid who's involved in special education, you probably wouldn't know about. But it's the federal law that gives every child, no matter what their disability is, a right to a free and appropriate public education. He was a very well-traveled guy who saw the need to travel more and to have more people, more students from the United States studying overseas. And in his last few years, he was working on a Lincoln Fellowship program. And he was such a low-tech guy that when he'd go around to these places and deliver his passionate speech about this fellowship program that would send juniors in college overseas to study, he had this little flip chart that was written out in memory, and he'd tote it through airports all over the place, and lose them and then have them sent back, and we have several of them at home now. He was a college dropout who could never read enough, so he had all sorts of good perspectives. And he had that ability to inspire people. People like our Illinois Attorney General, Lisa Madigan, who worked for him when she was, I guess, in college and was inspired to do more and continues to do more for us. People like Pat Quinn, who draws inspiration from many sources and is one of the best people that I know of returning it, and spreading it out, and getting that inspiration back to people. And one of the things Pat has done is to establish a Paul Simon Fellowship in his office, where young people get to work in his office for a year in a paid position in this Paul Simon Fellowship and take advantage of their desire to do public service and build a better Illinois. And I appreciate that about Pat. Other people who he inspired, a man that I met only after Dad died, Rasik Ghori from California now. He's originally from Pakistan. Moved to Illinois to get his medical education. Dad helped him get his family over here. And he continued to correspond with Dad as he would move around and do other things and meet up with Dad every once in a while. And I think most of you here knew Dad. He was always fond of telling people, things they might want to do. And once he told Dr. Ghori, he said, you have the finances now and you have this great medical training. You ought to open up a hospital in Karachi, in Pakistan, where you're from. He's going to do it. He's bought the property and he's working on building a Paul Simon Hospital in Pakistan, which is just such an amazing idea. I have to say I didn't always pay that close of attention when Dad told me I ought to be doing things. And then other people that he's inspired are maybe not so famous, like Emily Moore in DeSoto, who did her history fair for junior high on Dad, that's now on display in the museum. And Emily, I know, was very inspired to learn more about Dad and just to get into some of that stuff that for her really is history. But beyond Dad, the exciting part about having a museum here is that it's Troy, and what Troy did for Dad and how important Troy was to Dad's success and what Dad was able to do. Who would loan money to a skinny 19-year-old to take over the town's paper? The Lions Club in Troy did. What a tremendous risk to take, and obviously it paid off. Who would put up this skinny guy in their house and feed him? All Ann Keeker did. And in a town where our family had no relatives, she was one of two folks that I called Grandma Ann Keeker, and the other one was Grandma Hetty, across the street. Dad's Walther League friends would still get together and sing Lutheran hymns whenever possible. Rich and Mary Smith, who donated all their daughters as babysitters for us. Fran and Pete Gebhardt, who donated Jane Gebhardt for a whole summer one year when Dad ran for lieutenant governor. Jane was Martin and my babysitter for the summer. And Pat, I know I've told you before about how different that campaign was from your campaign for lieutenant governor. We loaded into a wood-sided, enormous station wagon. It was the four of us Simons, Jane, and two guys who I think maybe had just graduated from high school or college. They were youngsters, and all the campaign literature. And we spent the summer driving around in that station wagon. And I can't imagine a better way to spend a summer. And Jane's now a dean at a law school, and yeah, what a treat to be able to come into this community and really prosper in a way that you would hope that all people could do. Small towns can be exclusive, they can be oppressive, but they can also be a real source of support for someone who has talents and energy and drive. And so here's this guy who comes to Troy, Illinois with no relations in town, no money in his pocket, and nothing really but some promise. And Troy really let him live up to that promise and more. What an opportunity. Troy really did do it quite a bit for Dad, and Mom and Dad always loved Troy. I think this is where the source of many of their best friends, the Canasta Club. We still have a table that we play canasta on that's signed by the members of the Canasta Club. And anyone who has ever been a member of the Canasta Club knows what it means to say, I've got a red 3. Those kind of memories. In the basement of the house, in a paper bag that's stapled closed and marked in Mom's handwriting, is aluminum Christmas tree from Carl Embry, 1960. A little tiny one that you put together and put on a table for their first Christmas together. All sorts of things like that. We have a quilt on the bed out in the house in McCanda that's signed by many of you with quilt blocks from many families from Troy when we left Troy. So Troy was just a fantastic place for Dad, a springboard for so many things. What other town would have given him this opportunity, would have encouraged him and promoted him to run for public office when he didn't have a chance at all, and really started him off with the understanding that the best way to campaign is to really shake hands with everyone and go door to door. I wish more statewide candidates had the opportunity to do more of that now, because I think that's very important. Troy did the right thing for Dad, and I think now Troy and all of Dad's other friends who aren't from Troy, but might as well be from Troy because they're friends for that long, has the opportunity to do the same thing for other young people through this museum, I think. Emily Moore, who got excited about writing about Dad for her history project, is one of who knows how many youngsters who will only know Dad through a sense of history, not the way we know him. I think the museum is a way to certainly recognize the past, but more importantly, I think it's an investment in the future. It's a way that Troy has of saying we are still willing to encourage and promote and support someone who is energetic and honest and wants to work hard and wants to work for us and is willing to tell us when things are bad, when they would rather say things are all rosy. So what a wonderful contribution for all of you to make here to Troy and to the future of the state of Illinois and maybe the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that, boy, for me as just a committee member, I think that kind of helps me see the vision a little bit more of what we're all doing here and everything that you guys are doing to help support us by being here this evening. One thing as I was sitting here, I wanted to mention on the front of this book is just the money quote. If the people of Troy, of the Troy area, want a wishy-washy, jellyfish-like newspaper, then I came to the wrong town. And that's from one of his columns in 1948. And you know, when somebody sets a standard, you know, we try to live up to it. We have two successor editors here in the audience this evening that have been editors of the Troy paper, and I'd really like to quickly recognize Meg Rapperhouse and Pat Cox, who are editors of, and one's back there and Pat's right there. We're editors of our Troy newspaper now, and I think you guys have lived up to that standard that certainly that Paul set. We have the trivia answers. This is the troubling thing. I need to ask Regina to help me here.
Okay.
I have the questions, but I do not have the answers. But we wanted to quickly go through, for those of you who are playing along at home, to go through our trivia answers. And the first question, do you know in what year did Paul Simon become the publisher of the Troy Tribune? And I've already answered that. I know the answer to that one. That would be 1948. In what election year did Paul Simon run for President of the United States? Either if you were with me in my 8th grade class, or you were listening carefully earlier, you would know that is 1988. Now it gets a little bit tougher, and I'm going to need the answers. In what years did Paul Simon serve in the Illinois General Assembly? He served in the House of Representatives from 1954 to 1963. And then from 64 to 68, he served as state senator. And in what year was Paul Simon elected lieutenant governor? 1968. I know if you walk the halls on the third floor in Springfield, there is still a great portrait of him right outside. I guess it would be room 300, which is Mike Madigan, the speaker's office. Right down that hallway, there's a great portrait of him from his lieutenant governor days. What type of car did Paul Simon drive in Washington, D.C.? And there isn't an answer.
There isn't an answer there because I didn't know it. It was in my mind. I had an experience with it. And Gene Callahan confirmed it, that it was hard to believe that Paul Simon had an old yellow Mustang convertible that he drove until I guess it fell apart, up and down the streets of Capitol Hill. So.
Did not know that. What was Paul Simon's favorite drink no matter the time of day? Well, you guys are good. What is the title of Paul Simon's last book? 52 Simple Ways to Make a Difference. And how many books did Paul Simon author?
That was very on the
Yeah.
internet, yes.
13 authored and co-authored 19 or 22, depending on who you talk to. So I don't know. And what was Paul Simon's first book about? And I believe that it would be the first book that we had available for auction back there. Elijah Lovejoy, a slain Illinois preacher. And what was Paul Simon's nickname in Springfield? Reverend. So there are our answers to the trivia questions. I hopefully will have a list of auction winners here just a second, but really quickly we'd like to thank Cindy Westfall, our chair. Dennis and Cindy Westfall live in the Carney House on Market Street, which was once inhabited by the Simon family. And each of you will find in front of you a Christmas ornament on the table. You see the pine cones. And this is a homemade pine cone Christmas ornament that Cindy made from pine cones that were picked up this fall off of the yard there around the house. And so we'd like to encourage everyone to take one of those home and put it on your tree in honor of Paul. And we'd also like to recognize Dave and Pat Peverly, who were the owners of the house before the Westfalls. And I discovered this evening, and this is something that Pat didn't even realize until this evening, that actually Dave and Paul share today as birthdays. And then of course the question was, how old is Dave today? And I won't let on to it too much, but I think we discovered that he was born 12 years after Paul was born, and that he might be eligible for Medicare now. So anyway, our last thing on the agenda is to read a list of people who had the last spot on the auction pages, and hopefully we're going to have that here in just a second. Okay. We're going to need just a few more seconds. We thought about it, we could just open the microphone real quick. Is there anybody maybe who has was a neighbor or a friend or has something that they'd like to share real briefly here on Paul's birthday? I'm talking about going out on a limb. Millie, come on out. Or from right there if you'd like.
Well, I think it was when Paul was defeated as governor, we all gathered. We'd also gathered for Chivalry Park when he got married. I didn't keep up. What have I gotten into? Because it was noisy. But that night, we were all disappointed, of course, that he hadn't gotten to be governor. But I said to him, I think God's just got bigger and better things for you in the future.
Anyone else? How close are we? Nothing else. Just bring the sheets up and I can go ahead and quickly go through them. Okay. Do we have a the stack of anything. Okay, Daryl would like everybody to know if anyone would like to take home, I promoted the book so well. And I got out of it, I read it through, I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed it so much I actually did a book review for one of our local newspapers here in Madison County on it. I did enjoy it that much. We have copies if anyone would like to take a copy with them this evening. Turn this back on. If you'd like to take a copy with you this evening, we'd be more than happy to provide that. And